What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Coach's Corner. I'm Coach T-Mac, and I'm your host, whatever you want to call me. Welcome to the channel. This video's guest is one of the brightest young stars in our profession, and you'll quickly see why. If you want to catch these interviews live, I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and sometimes Sunday. But don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you can catch all my interview uploads. So without further ado, cue the intro.
Sit down.
What? Absolute butter.
Oh, let's go, baby. All right.
But what's up? So as y'all can tell by Twitter, got our third guest, and I've known him since 2013, and he is one of the smartest offensive and football in general minds that I know. And he's a guy that is well regarded in many different facets of football, whether it be, offensive game planning, play calling, or quarterback coaching from a program standpoint, private mechanics technique standpoint. Like I said, is very highly regarded, but at the end of the day is a football coach and is a play caller. And that's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to have him on, because of that diversity of knowledge, but the high level experience that he has. So without further ado, I will introduce y'all to Coach Trenton Kirklin of the Lipscomb Academy Mustangs. What's up, man?
What's up, man? Thank you so much for having me. That's a way too generous introduction. I'm happy to be on the show.
Man, I'm glad I was able to get you on. Yeah, I know nothing stops you from working 15-hour days, even if it's a global pandemic.
That's definitely Trent Dilfer's motto. I mean, he's up there longer than me, but it's been a grind nonstop. So, I mean, obviously with all due respect to Corona and everything that's going on, but yeah, it's still football.
Yep, without a doubt. So, tell everybody about your journey to get to Lipscomb. In case everybody doesn't know, Lipscomb Academy is a private high school attached to a private university outside of in the suburbs of Nashville. And I guess a little over a year ago, February of 2019, Trent Dilfer was contacted to test interest in taking over their program as the head football coach. And his first phone call was Trenton. And the connectivity, I'll let you explain because you're going to do a way better job, but the connectivity of how you first got into kind of on his radar and what really introduced him to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a long story, but, and obviously, I mean, Travis, you were part of it a little bit. I mean, so the genesis of it all comes from Joey Roberts. And so whenever I began to work with Joey, who obviously at that point and still is, he's working for Trent Dilfer, but I wanted to find a way to get into the Elite 11 because obviously, I mean, from a quarterback standpoint, if you're trying to be a quarterback coach or be a quarterback in general, Elite 11 is it's the holy grail. And so I wanted to find a way to get into it. And so I was contacted by Joey Roberts, and he was like, "Hey, if you want to dive into it, then you better dive in and do this thing with full force and don't expect anything in return, and just do as best you can, and we'll go from there." And so I did it, and as a result, it was probably around 3 years of just random, brutal, voluntary projects, whether they were just data analysis projects for ESPN or Elite 11 or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, after 3 years kind of passed, I mean, there were a couple things. Obviously, I could go do Senior Bowl or whatever, but didn't expect much. And then all of a sudden, Trent reached out to Joey whenever he got this job offer and said, "Hey, I want to hire an offensive coordinator first. What do you think?" And he's like, "Well, the first guy that comes to mind is Trenton." And so Dilfer and I had never actually even met or spoken before. So he calls me, and in my mind, I was like, "Well, maybe it's another project that he wants me to do, but this time he's gonna give it to me personally. I don't know." And so he calls me, and we start talking, and he's like, "Hey, I'm taking a job, and I want you to be my offensive coordinator." And it was kind of one of those like double takes, like, "Are you sure you called the right dude?" And so he flies me up there within like 72 hours. I signed a contract. that day. And so he drops me off at the airport, and he was like, "Hey, so February 6th, you're good to be here, right?" I was like, "Oh yeah, no problem." So I grab my bags, I'm walking to the terminal. I'm like, "Hold on, I think it's like January 28th right now." Had no clue that it was barely a week away, and so went back to Huddle High School where I was offensive coordinator and told them, and yeah, and then a week later I packed up all my stuff, left it in my apartment. Uh, Called my parents and said, "Hey, if you ever get time in the next 3 months to drive down to Austin to pick up my stuff, I really appreciate it." And packed up one suitcase and then drove here, and I feel like I've been working ever since.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when you called me after the initial phone call and you're like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Like yada yada yada. Here's, do you think, like, is that something? I was like, I don't even know why you're calling me. I feel like you have the answer and you know what my answer is going to be. You're just looking for the confirmation that it's not a stupid decision, and it's not. You should jump all over this and see what doors it can open for you. And I think the biggest reason that I was so excited for you is because knowing, I mean, those projects started 5 years before that phone call. So 2014, which ironically is year one of your play calling experience anyway. You're double duty. You're taking on 2 jobs, and one of them doesn't pay anything, and it requires almost as many hours. So I think that's just a big testament to when people look at, because the big thing now is like there's this tug of war between generational coaches, new regime, younger coaches coming in, older coaches, and I don't think there's this misconception that it's, oh, these kids don't want to put in the work, or these kids, and there is that group. But I think the big thing is that to accomplish or reach those next level, that promotion or those jobs, like there is, in the words of our head coach, you have to sweep the shed. And it doesn't matter if, in some form or fashion, the vast majority of those people that get those opportunities at a younger age, they swept a shed somewhere for somebody. And it may not have been the one that you saw, or it may not have been the one that these people saw, but it was a shed nonetheless. And it took a lot of time, effort, frustration, stress, angst, and all of those things. But, you had started investing into that phone call in 2014. And I think that was what was really cool is, us talking about it. I didn't want there to be a hesitation of like, look, you've been planning, you didn't know it was this opportunity, but you've been planning for a opportunity to come based off of everything you've been doing outside of your already job requirements. And so to see it come to fruition for me was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a really good way to put it, and I think everybody should know though too is if it wasn't for Travis, I mean there was many times where I was sleeping on the ground of my office doing those projects because I knew that at some point I had to game plan for the current team I was coaching, and I didn't want to short them, but I also needed to get the project done by the deadline, and so there are many times where it was never a quitting moment, but it was more of just like, man, is this ever going to come to fruition? Like, will anything actually ever come about this? And then Travis was really the only one that was like, man, just keep doing it. Like, you've already been doing it now for a couple of years. Just keep doing it, see what happens. And so I just appreciate that support. And I think every coach in general needs to have that circle of coaches, whether it's 1 or 2 or however many, but just to be there, because at the end of the day, coaching's a hard lifestyle. And I mean, it's Coach Dilfer's first year doing it. Um, but we all experience those moments, every single year. And so I think it's important to have that circle of trust where you can rely on those guys for support.
Yeah, and Plasm in chat said he had no clue Dilfer got out of broadcasting. And there's a little bit of yes and no to that. He still does some analytic and broadcast appearance type situations, but obviously not full time like he was. And he's still fully invested and the face of the Elite 11. And so he's still on TV and he's still taking active roles in some of those opportunities, but he is leading a high school program now. So, and as we move through this, if y'all have questions for Trenton, if we start talking ball, or if you have questions about where he's been, who he's worked with, all of those things, just put them in chat and I'll relay them. The other, so like I said, kind of mentioned, you and I met 2013, Tarleton State, GAing for the football program. And then 2014, you had a leg up on me just to get into the high school world, going through the education aspect of Tarleton, getting that certification and starting your coaching career, me taking a year to get that certification. But you've been calling plays for, 6 seasons now.
Yeah.
So, talk about, just real brief, you don't have to get into the ins and outs, but talk about the growth of, where you started in that 14 season up there in Borger and where you were, whether it be at Hutto or this past year, because I know Lipscomb's a little bit different, but talk about the growth and the trials and tribulations and how different would you say you are as a play caller from 14 to 19?
Yeah. So, just quick context. So, Borger High School, Taylor High School for 2 seasons, New Braunfels for 1 season, and then Hutto, and then Lipscomb this past year. So, Texas, and then obviously this year now in Tennessee. But it's kind of a cliche, but I've seen each year that I've coached with more experience, I realize I know way less than what I thought I knew in 2014. And so it almost seems like each year kind of gets that way where it's like, man, I really don't know that much at all. And so maybe that's just being, trying to surround myself with older coaches who have been in the game for a minute. But I will say in 2014 and 2015, I kind of was confident in myself. I still am, but I really thought that I knew a lot of information and I didn't know any at all. And so the blessing, obviously, with having those roles that early on, really, I was able to kind of screw up in a sense and mess up and learn from those. And I think with so many coaches, they're scared to do that. And I'm a big believer in when is it ever going to be the right time to do anything? You just got to do it and learn from it, and how you respond is going to kind of tell the tale. So, but yeah, from a play calling standpoint, from 2014, I've kind of always been more of an air raid guy. Obviously, when I met Travis, he introduced me to a little bit of the Art Briles and the Baylor stuff, which I'm sure we won't talk too much about tonight, but it's really good stuff. Travis has an incredible mind. But yeah, so it's kind of been more of a hybrid between those two. And the interesting thing is with each place I've gone, really only 2 of all those seasons, I was actually able to go in there and use my vernacular, use my signals, and all the other seasons where they already had their system in place. Now it was air raid or Tony Franklin or whatever you want to call it, but I kind of had to adapt and adjust to theirs in a sense, and then make my system fit within their verbiage. So, I've had more than 2 seasons now where the signaling was totally different. The run game, pass game, all the verbiage was so different. And so that alone has made me grow a lot.
Yeah, I think that's something that, it's funny you bring that up, because I just talked to an old teammate who's putting himself in position for, an OC role. And, you and I'm experiencing that right now. And, we've always kind of, we started out our friendship of having those delusions of grandeur of like, oh, if I'm calling the plays, I'm going to call them how I call them. Yeah. And I quickly started to understand that it's not that, it's not that simple. And it's not just about a head coach saying, hey, you're going to do it this way. It's also about, if you're coming into a program that has had success and there's just, somebody left to go somewhere else and they brought you in, and those kids are familiar. And if you've come in late in the year or whatever the install situation is, it's not about you. Or the plays you call aren't about you. It's about putting the kids in the best situation to be successful. So if you have to learn how to call, 618 fiddle fart or whatever, because that's what the kids called it in junior high and sub varsity, well, you need to do that because that's what's going to allow them to stay confident with whatever your game plan is. So I think that's a huge thing for young coaches is being able to be adaptable, within your own offense. Heath in the chat said, how did you go hybriding those 2 styles together? Always thought they were both styles you need to marry to. And I think he's talking about the things that you took. And I don't want to answer for him, Heath, but when he says that I introduced him to stuff, we talked about it a lot, but Trent was very specific on, this is what I want, this is what I like, and this is what I'm going to take. And he did. I mean, and I'll let him answer. He found a way to make them both work within his game plan. So he just wants to know how you were able to marry or blend those two together.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. And kind of just, I mean, before that, backtracking, I think it's super important for coaches to understand that you do want to have your own system in your mind, and take pride in that. But you also, like Travis said, you want to go into that place knowing that there's probably something in place that they've been successful with it. You have to find that happy medium between the two. You can't have tons of pride, like I've seen some coaches before, and say, no, this is my offense, we're going to do it regardless. You'll lose so much credit doing that. And so it's, at the same time, you also don't want to conduct an offense that you're not comfortable with. So it has to be that happy medium. I think it's super important to understand. But in regards of how I came up with a hybrid, I mean, for me, it was really a couple of concepts that I took, that I learned from Travis, and I failed the first year at doing that because you are right in a sense, like whatever your identity is, I think it's super important that you keep that and you always maintain that and you stay on those railroad tracks with that and never really veer off of it. But where I messed up my first year was I tried to marry two things together, exactly how they were in those systems that I discovered them within. And so I figured out you can marry a couple things together as long as they fit within your one system and they're what your brain clicks with it. Because through all of this stuff, you can marry whatever you want. Everything that we do is basically stolen since coaching began. But as long as it fits within your system and your kids and your coaches know what your identity is.
For sure. And to piggyback off of that, um, he like I said, he knew exactly what he wanted, and he made sure that when it was going to become a staple of his offense, that it was rep the way it needed to, and it was installed the way it needed to be, and it was understood by the kids. And that's where, for me, the marrying aspect comes from. Is are the kids confidently comprehending the play calling and the concept? And the only way I really see that happening, especially at the high school level, is practice and repetitions, right? You can have these different plays in, but if you're repping 40% of your playbook 80% of the time, well, don't go on 3rd and 9, late in the fourth quarter. Don't go pull out of that other 60% and then expect it to be perfectly executed, right? So it's all about the practice and time management within whatever you decide is going to be your identity.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the good point is, I mean, for me, I'm from Borger High School, Borger, Texas, and it's Borger High School up in the Texas Panhandle. And so we have some pretty good athletes, but we are no Duncanville. And so a really good example, and I've done it. I've done this. I've had this issue before. I'd be really ignorant to see this really cool concept from Duncanville. They ran it, and man, like as a young coach, that's a really cool concept on the board. Let me take that to Borger High School. There's a lot of reasons why it probably worked at Duncanville, and it probably fit their kids. And maybe it fit those two receivers were better at catching the ball on the interior, and that's why they had that scheme. And the two kids I got, they're better on the exterior. So it could be a cool scheme, but kind of what Travis is saying, I've had to do a good job every year of saying, okay, this is a cool scheme, but why? And first off, how is that going to fit our kids? And am I doing it just because it looks cool, or am I doing it because I think it's going to be a legit play for our kids? And if it's not, if there's any hesitation, I'm dishing it out. It's not worth it.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that I took away from Coach Prowse, just like reflecting back, is that his big thing is that, if we were going to do something totally new, not like a wrinkle, but totally new, we were going to run it on Tuesday, a certain number of times they expected. And if it sucked, you get one shot on Wednesday. And if it sucks on Wednesday, it's out. We're not going to waste any more time on it, because obviously there's a disconnect between how we're coaching it, or what our expectations are, and how the kids are perceiving it and executing it. And for a high school translation, that that's just your Monday, Tuesday, right? By the time you get to Wednesday and your half show, whatever you're doing that day better be what you're going to do on Friday, because if you're wasting time on things you're not going to do on Friday, then we're all missing the point anyway.
That's right.
All right, so to move into the football aspect, because I think there's a few more people that have jumped in, and I think they're all kind of waiting to see where you take this. And I'm really glad the things you chose to talk about. I'm really glad that you're bringing them, because it's gonna help me kind of where the conundrum I'm in is as we go through this offseason and really lock down some things about our offense. But which of the three do you want to talk about first?
We have, like Travis said, so we have a version of a jailbreak, and we have a version of a running back slow screen, like a rocket and a laser in the air raid verbiage, and then we do have Y cross, and so the blueprint for all of these, we're manipulating the backers in some type of way, and so for me, Travis, you can pick. It doesn't really matter to me which one we begin with.
Let's start, since we have two screens.
Yeah.
Go with one of the screens first, and then we can kind of build up to Y cross. Because
sure. You want me to show it first, and then kind of explain from there?
Yeah, just go ahead and share your screen, and whether the film's running or not, just kind of walk everybody through what's about to happen.
Yep, I got you. Can you see my screen?
We can. It's huge. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. So you want to screen first?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start off with some jailbreaks. So I have around 4 to 5 clips in each one, and so all these are going to be a little bit different. But these are, if you're kind of in the air raid world, this is your jailbreak. You have your missile, you have your jailbreak. This is more of your little bit of a slower wide receiver screen, and so this is a pretty basic one where I made the adjustment on some of these beginning at Hutto and then really into this year. Was trying to find a tag, whether it was a swing by the running back and then the jailbreak on the other side, or fake handing the ball off, or actually handing the ball off to the backside defensive end at your read and then going jailbreak back to the side. But regardless, we're trying to double screen it somehow. And again, it's trying to find the best way. If there's a GoDaddy at that backer and we can't block him if we got two guys on him, let's just try to read him then. And so these 4 clips here, they're kind of just a description of what our jailbreak is. So this one, for example, would be jailbreak to the right. We're going to be reading the mic, and so I'll show it first. Travis, make sure that it's clear and you guys can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so in regards to the blocking scheme, everybody's going to be a little bit different, whether you release 3 out or you release 2 out or everybody. But so here you can see we had the swing here on the left side, right, by the running back. Then we have jailbreak over here to the right. And so generally with this, we'll do it to a 2-service area over here with the swing, right? So you'll have your X and you'll have your slot receiver. So that being said, we're normally going to be reading the mic in that case and see if we can influence the mic over to the swing side. That requires less blocking now, or better angles to capture the mic by our lineman going to the right for jailbreak, if that makes sense. So the best way to really tell, put it in perspective. So if we're trying to really capture this guy here, okay, well, if we can influence by the time that our linemen get back to this position here, because we are influencing here, that gives them A, more time, and B, a better angle. So whenever he does come this way, they're already in front of him. And so now it's just more of a seal and a wall, if that makes sense. And then obviously if he doesn't go with the running back, well, then now we've got numbers and 2 for 2 over here. And so now we'll just dish to the back and let him do what backs do, which is hopefully make guys miss. And so in this case, we influence the mic, and so we're going back to the jailbreak to the right, and it's pretty decent play. You're going to see kind of throughout these clips the importance of the receiver catching it and getting back outside immediately. It's something I've really started to harp on these past couple of years. I've seen so many receivers at this point here want to go back this way. That's the worst thing, in my opinion, that you can do. The higher level of football that you are playing, the higher level of chance that you're putting that receiver at risk to let him get hit. So again, this is just another way that we can have 2 plays in one, kind of piggybacking off the RPOs.
Yeah, I had an old wise coach that he called that false daylight, right?
False daylight.
Cutting it back across the field, thinking that you're wide open in that pursuit angle of the guy that's not being blocked.
That's right. All right, so this right here, this is this year actually at Lipscomb Academy. So This is actually a double jailbreak, and so I'm sure there's a lot of people that do this. This is my first year really dabbing into it, but and so we have a double jailbreak from both slots here. We're gonna be reading the mic. All right, so I get it. 5-man box. We're not running the ball. It's 3rd and 10. All right, so we're gonna be reading the mic here. We're gonna read him at the quarterback, help influence more, and this is exactly why it's so important. So this is where I've gotten into way more detail with my receivers this year with when they're catching the ball. So when you catch that ball, they should use that first lineman that's going to kick out. That is almost their wall they're trying to get inside of. And then as that's happening, they're trying to keep in peripheral this second lineman. He's going to dictate the angle at which they're going. Now, regardless, we're trying to always, perfect situation, get inside this guy here and then immediately back outside, right? And so there are certain situations to where we may have to go back on the inside of both of them. But if you can read this guy right here as you catch the ball, that way now he can just block that guy however he wants to block him. We're not going to make him turn him in or out. And because he doesn't do that here, you can see that we actually had a pretty decent play here. I mean, we had really good numbers, and so if he could actually get to where he's supposed to get to here,
Yeah, you got a chance at a first down.
absolutely.
Yeah, we always just said run to butts, right? So understand you can't just know that like, oh, it's a hitch screen, so they're coming to me, right? Well, how many of them are coming to you? Because what's the center? What's the inside? And establish what your read block is, right? Because you've got the one that's just throwing his big body to clear out space out on the edge, but you got 2 more coming, you got 1 more coming. What are you working with? Now we do. Heath wants to know, do you have any issues with the quarterback holding onto the ball too long on read screens? Just asking because because curious of answers for pressures. Holgerson talks about not liking having QBs read the screen for timing reasons, but just curious on others' thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and I think you can try to help your quarterback out there by how quick you allow that receiver to retrace back inside, and so if you can try to manipulate his path a little bit deeper, it can try to help that quarterback make the throw a little bit quicker. And then for us, so too, we do try to work that running back sometimes, whether it's screaming him out early. Or orbiting him around us to see if we can't make that read on the mic happen just a little bit quicker, so now we can get the ball in our hands quicker as well. But yeah, I mean, ultimate goal is you're always protecting number one, which is the quarterback there. And that's a great question. And so, I mean, it's a big risk, but I mean, this is a great example. I mean, it's the exact same game. We're down here, obviously, 10-yard line, and so a lot of coaches won't run it down here. And I'm getting to the point now, the last, I guess, year and a half, to where I'm almost more of a I'd almost rather do it here than open field. Primarily due to, I mean, blitzing purposes and what their tendencies are, but it's the same exact play here. He learned, the first time the mistake that he made, and so we do it again and come back with it, and he does a little bit better job. Um, and you can see at this point now, he just got his butt just reamed on the sideline, so he's already trying to now get back on the outside here, again, it helps because now you're not going back into where everybody's already coming right back at you and they're chasing after you. So he did a pretty good job here, and yeah, I mean, we felt like half an inch short there, but again, it's one of those to where I think it's a great equalizer for teams that are going against superior talent. And so this is the last one on this section, and the biggest thing I wanted to show here, and this is not a double screen, but this is why it's so important that you use that first lineman kicking out here at your safe haven, right? So as he goes to kick out, you've got to get inside that, and then you're almost trying to be like a D lineman that's running the hoop, right? I mean, you're tied to that hoop, or you're tied to his butt, and trying to get back outside right now. And he does a great job here. Yes, first down. It was good. Again, it was just, he learned his mistake the last time, and from there they trusted us from there. Because I will say, I'm sure Travis, you would agree to this. At this point, you normally see those kids go right here.
Yep, he thinks that oh, there's one guy out there, and that's the only one I have to worry about. Well, I mean, it's just like a backside safety, right? You can't juke the guy you can't see. And I think one, just to piggyback off of that, and I only piggyback because of personal experience. But if you really want to help with that, I get what Holgerson's saying, and obviously he knows what he's doing. He's called a lot of games. He scored a lot of points. But if you want to help your quarterback in that, control the receiver. What a lot of kids struggle with is on hitch screen, tunnel screens, whatever you want, whatever you're running, they're in a hurry, right? It's just like their routes. They think that they have to get there fast, not be quick. So what we do is anytime we want to throw stuff like that, we're bringing a lineman out there to run a hitch screen, slow him down. Even if you're running a tunnel screen, have those first 3 steps be aggressive and then come out controlled. Accelerate through the catch. Don't run to a spot and stop to catch it. Now, you can have success with 3 up, 3 back, catching it stationary for sure. But if I can get the ball rolling as I catch that football, I mean, that's what makes Odell Beckham great. That's why he turns slants into touchdowns, is because of his ability to accelerate through the catch. So what you can really do is just control that aspect of the play. Don't mess with the quarterbacks. He's got a lot going on, right? He's got guys that aren't being blocked running at him. He's trying to read left or right on a Mike linebacker. And then as he's on the run, basically turn and throw the ball to a spot. So if you can find a way to really just rep your receivers coming out of their change of direction under control, accelerating through that catch, that bend back outside, that setting up of big linemen blocking small guys in space, it becomes 1,000 times easier.
Yep. No, I mean that's a great point, and for all of your Caleb Bonds and all those D linemen that obviously, I mean, we're seeing way more nowadays. Like I started seeing so much. I mean, the more athletic they get up front, the quicker they're going to be. And so I've seen so many kids that on the old school tunnel screen, when they're taking that thing way back in here to catch the ball, which that takes more time to catch it anyways and throw it right. And then to get back out here, unless you have great what we call rat control by that backside guard or backside tackle, whether it's even or out front, they'll make the call. But unless you have great control by them, you're going to have these guys chasing pretty quickly. And so the issue with this is if you don't make this a little bit of a quicker throw and you don't catch it and get back outside now, then you're also limiting your ability to actually run this play into the boundary, right? Because with a shorter field, like what I discovered this year in Tennessee is we have different hashes. We totally different rules. Long story there, but NFHS. That's obviously what we go by, and I didn't realize in high school it's NCAA hashes. So I get here to Tennessee, and our hashes are, I mean, damn near to the sideline. So that makes a huge difference in regards to field of play and where you want to get the ball to. So, I mean, a normal jailbreak for us in this scenario, if we're going into the boundary, it's not a huge, huge difference. But in this case for us, it's a major difference. So that's why, again, harp on catching the ball, get inside your first guy, and get your butt straight back outside, away from the big boys.
For sure, for sure.
Um, Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you want to jump into your running back slow screen.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, So here we go. So this is just your basic, just to give you an idea, this is just our basic slow screen. This is not the double screen or double option I wanted to show you quite yet, but this is just to give you an idea. Everybody has a screen. Everybody's seen it. Just like our jailbreak, some people have 2 go out, some people have 3 go out. I mean, it kind of varies. But the reason why I want to show this is because I will use a lot of this motion, and we will have the ability to throw to this guy. And so right now, obviously, he's not running his normal bubble, but we have that ability to. And so I think it's important to find ways to still disguise your plays that you have. In other words, to protect the ones that you're going to have. So if you have a double screen where you're going to motion your guy across and throw that bubble, or if you're not going to do it on one particular time, still motion that guy across and protect it and to see if they're going to be shifting, if they're not, but you can still get a read from those guys and still use them. And so you'll see here in a few clips how we do something similar and we get the same influence. It's a big play here. And so here, obviously, we're orbiting around, so different motion. We have the ability to throw it if we want. We're reading, in our terms, we're reading the mic. We influence them. We try to stay influencing them from there, and it's a decent play. And so again, I think this is a good example, similar to our jailbreak screen. It's why it's so important for even when the Q decides he wants to make that throw to the jailbreak or to the slow screen, we can still fake that throw to the swing. Because you watch here, it will influence, and sometimes this little bit of influence here is enough. And these big boys here will appreciate 1 yard of difference to allow them to get here and be able to retrace on that guy, as opposed to this guy's here. He has a better chance of getting over the top. So obviously, you guys know if we've got a big guy chasing an open field after a skinny guy, we all know who's going to win that. And so, any chance that we can help these big boys out, we're going to do it. And so, this is a good example of that.
For sure. Heath asks, what's your timing for the O-line and the back release on your screen?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, I mean, we're actually, Coach Dilfer and I are going through those conversations now as far as changing them. I've kind of done a lot of different things. I've done it from a hi hat, high hand, for we have two Mississippi, but that's changed though too. I mean, it's I would imagine with the personnel we have next year, it'll probably be a little bit quicker. And I've had years too to where they were really quick, and I actually wanted to do it off of an inside zone footwork instead of a high hand. So I've always kind of made it different, but it's never going to be as fast as your missile screen, which is normally catch and throw. It's normally one Mississippi, two Mississippi, and then we're out right now. So, and again, I think that's one where so many coaches, they're reading the handbook as far as, oh, it has to be this. It's high school football. It's so much about Jimmys and Joes and who you got. If it needs to be 3 seconds and that's the best time, and you can still get the ball off, make it 3 seconds.
For sure, for sure. I like that that inside zone setup. I never thought about that.
Yeah, we start talking about that actually today. It won't be off inside zone, but something like wide zone or something like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, again, and I think the hardest thing for me every year that I've gone somewhere is trying to get the linemen to understand, like, let them come to you. Like, you have an area to go to. Uh, I've been around a lot of coaches that like to tell their linemen that you have a person, you have a mic. I'm almost getting to the point now where it's like, man, you ain't got a person. Like, that might be your second thought, but I want you in this area, because it's not like college football and NFL football to where these guys are going to be that much more, gap sound, and they're going to be responsible for this area of the field. You might have on this particular play 5 guys go with the motion here. And the last thing I want to have happen is this center and this guard retracing back to the guy. Well, coach, I have the mic. Well, the mic's over here. Don't go chase him,
Yeah.
right? And so you're a big boy. Save your energy, and just go to your destination that we gave you on the field. Whether it's you're always outside the numbers and you're always hash, whatever it may be, but that's kind of what has allowed us to get better this year. So this is another way of doing it. So this is actually a big play for us. This is really what won us the game. So 3rd and 5 here. I think this is maybe, I think after this possession, we were able to get the ball back and then obviously kill the clock from there. But so we're doing the exact same thing. It's just now we're doing it with a sniffer, right? So we have our H swing. We're still going to be reading the mic. Even if he goes from the snap, we still want to try to help and influence, like I said before. And then from there, again, what that allows is sometimes, even if he doesn't get back into the picture, it allows one less linebacker that our linemen have to block. Okay, and so now, best case scenario, you could have 2 big boys right up the sideline that they have nobody to block with. It's just a big moving wall that running back or that receiver can follow. So it's just our slow screen to the right with the running back. Terrible job by the receiver up top. I know Travis probably saw that. The worst job I've ever seen in my life. but great hustle by him coming back and helping him out. I think he realized that film room on Saturday was going to be a rough session for him if he didn't go do that. So, but again, same concept as far as influencing a linebacker and still having 2 plays in one, and just trying to use anytime you have inferior or superior, it's the best way to try to make the equalizer. So,
and it definitely, I think it's a great curveball or changeup, going to your H like that, because I mean, your 2 most consistent or statistic producers, one's aligned away and one motions away, right? And so you get more of an influence doing it that way, and pulling extra backers out of the way to create that space. And like you said, if you're teaching the big boys, hey, you have this guy, well, one of those is running the complete other direction and
Yeah.
wasting himself on the play. So that's an awesome curveball. Yeah, he said that was a quarterback type block by your receiver. So
Yeah. So these are, I think these are the last two on this clip. These are actually, this is the first year I started doing this. These are my favorite. Um, so obviously we're in a deuce set here, what we call a deuce, so just two tight ends here. And so what we're gonna have here is we're gonna have fades on the outside, fades converted to hopefully blocking. But as you saw last clip, that might not happen. But
right.
fades on the outside converted to blocking if they don't get the ball. And then your two tight ends have just natural speedies, 5 yard speed outs, right? So you'll have this with a fade. Scratch that. Terrible drawing there. There you go. And then on the front side here, same thing. Okay. And so all we're tying with these here is we're tying a running back slow screen. So we have double speed outs, and then we have our running back slow screen to the left. So obviously we're going to be reading the backer that is affecting the flat here for us, who would be covering the speed out, right? And obviously if it's cover two, then we're hitting the real shot. So here we go, so you can check it out.
Yeah, so you get man coverage there. You're like +4.
Yeah. So it pulls that guy out, and try to do the best you can about telling this guy here, run your route. If you don't get the ball, find the best way to try to at least get into the way. And it helps too, because now again we've really taken two birds with one stone. Now we really don't have to have that kick out anymore, the block, and so we can have two big boys working at vertical here. So great play, boundary or field. It's a great job by the quarterback of staying in there and making this happen. Trying to attest to the question we had earlier.
Definitely. Hey, Heath asked, what do you do versus press corner, like in their face, run them off or try and block force? I will tell you, and he may think that I'm a complete idiot, but this is what we did, and it's fun, so the kids buy in immediately. But even if it's cover two, there's a variation of it. But if you get a guy that's pressing and you're running a screen, it's obviously mandatory outside release, but tell them to run a release that gets them covered, but pulls his attention, because the second he looks back, cut him. It's hilarious. Kids love to see it on film. They love to come running to the sideline. Coach, I got him. And then if you're playing cover two, he just gives that outside release till that guy presses and presses and presses. And then when he feels the guy look back inside, big arm him, push him back in front, and just get back to working. That's what we've done. That's from a personal standpoint. That's what we've done. And like I said, it's a lot of fun. The kids eat it up. I mean, when you can outside release a kid and he thinks he's just covering a runoff and then he gets cut with looking back to the play, it's hilarious to watch on film, and they eat it up.
Yeah, I mean, so these are situations where I generally will give the most basic answer, because Travis he's the GOAT when it comes to the receivers and the blocking and everything in the world of receivers. So I would always defer to him. But yeah, I mean, for us, it's we try to give them in the game plan based on what they do. Hey, this can be a conversion route, run them off. If we feel like we're a little more athletic, then we know how they're going to adjust to that, so we can stay with them. We can block them, whatever we want to do. But in this game in particular, we told them, if you're getting man, you're just taking off with it. And so this was actually an incompletion. This is probably perfect for the person that just asked that question about the quarterback and trying to protect him. And so we do not protect him here. But I will say that these are situations too, to where I've told the quarterbacks, man, this is where you got to be like Kobe, and you've got to be like MJ, and you've got to make these plays happen. You got to know that it's going to hurt. You got to know how to fall down and take this hit, because with this exact same play, we're doing the same thing back here to the right. And if we can get this ball off, it is a big play.
Yeah, because Key Sweat out there.
That's right. Yeah, they have no clue who to block because nobody's in that area. So we have, you want to put it in a number perspective, 1, 2, 3, 4 for their 3. We got numbers all day long, and so I'm normally pretty hard on my quarterbacks, and this really is a center's fault. We had some issues kind of throughout the year, and again, they haven't done tons of screens in the past. They're strictly wing tee like the last 15 years, but trying to tell them, hey, we know that we're trying to get them dish ragged across, but you can't let the ball snap and then just throw them straight to the quarterback. You do have to somewhat block them for a second and then go out. And so we kind of struggle with that concept every once in a while. Obviously, this being one of those. But again, I'll be way harder on the quarterback and say, hey, you still got to make it happen. Find a way to make it happen.
Yeah, because he almost does. He really almost does.
Yeah, he does. And so again, it's would have been a big play, but we lost that one. So
yeah, that Heath said that's that Lincoln Riley John Wayne throw.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's where that arm slot's like right there below your hip.
Yep.
So this is the last place to have. These are all just variations of Y cross. We really didn't do Y cross this year, where I was at Lipscomb, but we did a lot of it at Hutto, which is where I was at the year before, and so. So Y cross, Travis is obviously very familiar with it as well. It's kind of the staple of the air raid, besides like mesh or shallow. So some people argue, so I'll put that out there. But you know, where we were pretty good at, I would say, and to give you guys context, this was a team that I walked into, and they were already great. They already had a system in place for the most part. I added a few things that were still kind of in their repertoire, but they haven't been doing it. But was within the area. But regardless, these guys have been playing together for a long time. I mean, it'd be no different than me saying that I'm the quarterback prep trainer for Cam Newton out of college, and I made him. That did not happen. Cam Newton because he's a freak. And so these kids here, they were really, really good. It made my coaching job way easier this year. But so these are all versions of Y cross. And so we're in what we considered this year. This was a doubles wide look. So we were in a normal doubles look, but we were wider splits. And so I wanted to show you guys this first because this is where it's really important to, even if you know that you are not going to do the typical U SOM, which some of you have probably heard understand over Mike with this crossing route. So generally where he's here to here, right? You always have your fade on the outside. Everybody's different on the slot. You'll have generally a speedy. And then people are different here. You're going to have some type of a post dig if it's man. If it's zone, you'll have some type of curl if you want post curl. And then your back can swing generally away from where that cross is coming from. So when I'm going this way here. Travis, probably pretty similar your version that you'll have.
Yeah, it's literally verbatim.
Okay, so but this is where even if you know that you're not going to be able to get over there, I think it's still super important to inside release because it will affect these safeties. If you can get that inside release, generally they think it's a crossing route or some type of shallow route, and so they will end up being more apt to bail or take their eyes off at least, which will open up a lane for that receiver, as you'll see later on. But had a little bit of a blitz here. And again, it costs us here. And the other benefit to inside releasing too is obviously you're getting closer to your quarterback, right? So you're getting closer to helping your quarterback in situations like these, and it makes it harder too. I mean, if you look at it from just from like a movement standpoint, this guy's trying to work out to cover him now. We can be working in while he's working out. We got him deep. And so just stick to your rules and know that even if it's a stem that's this small or if it's this long, it doesn't matter, but you have to have that inside flatter stem for many reasons. And so it affects us here, and it wasn't a great play.
Yeah, I think that's two of the big issues that you run in with when you run 95 and you SOM it. Kids are going to do one of two things when they do it wrong. They're either going to vertical release and run a dig, right? Or they're going to inside release and never climb again, right? They're just going to once they inside release under the SAM, they're just going to carry that angle. And those were the two big things. The past 2 years, we've had those problems, but consistently different in both years. So in 18, our issue was they ran a 10-yard dig, right? Or they ran like a hard post. And there was no inside release. And then this past year, we really harped on our guys, hey, press this thing inside. And then there was no climb. And the climb is so valuable because of the space it creates. And not to step on your toes, you're coaching us up, but from somebody who's run this play, it's when you just inside release and pick a spot on the opposite sideline and head that direction. Well, it's simple geometry. Everybody knows where you are. They know where you are and they know where you're going. But when you can manipulate those paths and those directions by climbing vertical for 3 steps and then bending to that same spot, the Mike has lost track of you. He doesn't even care about you anymore because he considers you a vertical route, not a crosser. So those are the 2 big things that we've really had to be mindful of when coaching our kids on this play, because both of them completely change the way the defense looks to this route combination.
Yep. No, I mean, that's smart. And so, to piggyback off of that, one thing, a big thing I learned from Coach Dilfer, I mean, I had many things I've learned, but one of them was the timing at which that receiver always falls into the quarterback's eyes. And that's nothing you guys probably don't know, but it's one of those to where, from a chemistry standpoint, that quarterback needs to know, if it is a fade and it is a speed out, that it should be boom to boom to boom. And I should be able to keep my eyes closed and I should be able to do that. And if there's an issue with that, that's that receiver's fault that he's on my eyes now. If I get sacked, that's his problem. Or if I'm getting hurried, that's his problem because I should be able to throw that ball there and he was not there. And so I think some coaches can take it too deeply, and some coaches can be exactly on point, like Travis is saying here, and as they're doing it, to where this is one of those to where you have to be attention to detail. You can't just let the little BS slide. You have to be on point with it. To go back to kind of the whole format of what this session is, again, it's kind of influence of linebackers. So some of you are saying, why are you swinging to your speed outside? And so this was not really a team that had tons of boundary blitz, so I wasn't worried about that. So from a flare control standpoint, I mean, we didn't need it into the boundary, but they also were a pretty heavy man on back type of team with those linebackers. So knowing that we weren't going to get tons of blitz here, and that if I could swing somebody here now to the field, it would separate these inside backers and get them on the perimeter. What that would allow is it would allow this route here to be caught a little bit shallower and a little bit quicker. And again, don't start doing this type of stuff until they can just run basic wide cross. But that's the cool thing about when you get to it, when they can do it with their eyes closed, is when you can start having fun with it. So again, this is just another version of our Y cross. And so a lot of area guys will say that was a lot quicker. That's the whole point of that. Is, we expanded them out horizontally, displaced them horizontally, and it happened quicker. Now, as you can't tell here in the film, because they were more of the backers staying on our backs, they like to try to displace that field safety. And so anytime the back was screaming to the field, he would expand as well. And so that's what also allowed that throw to happen quicker.
It's beautiful.
And always goes back to, I mean, that's a great player. I mean, it's you ain't got to coach that kid too much. So he makes us look really, really good. So, but even the stem, it helps. Even just the slide, as you're going to see on one of these last couple here that I have, the importance of it. So it's a Y cross again from up top here. And really, this is so much more just on the quarterback. We have our normal flare control here into the boundary with your running back. I've had some coaches say he's always got to go to the Y cross. He always has to go to the Y cross. If it's Y cross on the right, it's got to be swing to the right. But again, in the last clip, you can see if you can manipulate and change, go for it. As long as your quarterback knows his flare control, and if he has no flare control, then he's responsible for that edge somehow, some way. And if you're not blessed with that as your quarterback, then yeah, you got to keep it the normal way. So this is, I really want to show this more for Travis. This is almost more of like North Carolina, they have Y cross, or they had Y cross, and Travis and I went up there and a few years back, and they had Y cross, and they also had Y crook, and it was more of just your typical Y cross, to where they're working here to here. Instead of working across, he's kind of just sitting it down. This is not an intentionally called play, but the other reason why I wanted to bring this up is because it's another reason as to when your guys get really good at this play, you don't really have to have a wide crooked anymore because that chemistry is already built, and they've done it so many times that they know no safeties do this. Boom, I can just sit it down. And so again, wide cross from the right here, basic down here. You have your fade, you have your speedy. Um, it's in my opinion, especially here in Tennessee with our hashes, the way that they're a little bit wider, being able to get that wide cross working into that boundary with some type of vertical and speed out into the boundary, that's scary. Um, the one thing that Travis and I, we've always kind of talked about doing, we've seen in the past is obviously instead of having this speed out, if it's anything besides like a cover two, go ahead and try to make that speed out a post. It'll clear out that safety. So now when that wide cross does get there, all you have left is just that backer. And that's where for me it's like, I'd rather have my quarterback learn how to make a later throw over the top of that linebacker. And that's a lot of film for that linebacker to have to cover there. So I would just rather wish him the best of luck, knowing that we've got all that room on the back end because that safety's cleared out. And so, again, it's just one of those to where
Heath, write that down. This is worth the price of admission right here. When you go Y cross H post, good things happen. It's a fact.
That's a fact. Yeah, that's probably one of the better things that Travis and I have discussed and probably agreed upon is being able to make that change happen. And you can make that tag on the slot with the post. That's a scary tag to have because if you got a cue and you got a line that can give you about 2.5 to maybe 3 seconds, which again, that's asking a lot. If we can do that, you got a chance for a home run there.
For sure. Well, I mean, that's all I got. That's some high dollar knowledge that's out there in the universe now. So hopefully all your opponents aren't watching and downloading.
No, man, I enjoyed it. Thank you for letting me come on here. And it's, and especially in times like these, man, it's nice to be able to get up on here. And, we're grateful for people like yourself who found creative ways to be able to talk some football and do it in a safe manner and do it from here at home and find ways to continue to learn and grow. So I appreciate it.
One more question. Plasma asked, are your personnel packages always dictated by the play concepts or level of talent available to you? Or is it a bit of both?
Got it. Restate that first part.
Are your personnel packages always dictated by play like do you tie different concepts to 10 versus 11 or 20?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really done that too much. I mean, to be honest with you, I've never really had the ability to have that many kids to choose from. I mean, it'd be nice if I can kind of have those that blessing, but I don't. I've never done that, and to be honest with you too, I personally would rather just get my kids repping that same play over and over again. And if I have to get into a different personnel package for that, for me being more like an air raid guy, I hate subbing in and out. And so trying to take a bit from Lane Kiffin, unless it's on a dead ball or it's coming out from the series, I like to try to stay within that same personnel the whole time and run with the plays that we have. But going back to kind of an air raid philosophy, and you have what you have, and you run it the way that you run it. There's not going to be tons of adjustments made. Like you can see wide cross ran from different people, but it's because the whole team knows the whole concept. And I think that's where the beauty of having limited concepts versus a plethora is more advantageous because you can have an entire playbook. And the way I've always said it is okay, if I've got 8 plays total, just arbitrary number, I would hope that 4 of those are the main 4 plays, and the other 4 are 4 individual plays that complement and protect those other 4 plays. And that should be enough. And I get it, there's going to be way more adjustments you got to make in the future. But if you're having to come up with different ways to get personnel packages in and this and that, I've always kind of said more of, well, why are we not executing our base package first with our basic foundation of our kids? And so, I mean, besides that, unless we're on the 5-yard line with a jumbo package. I've never really tried to group it like that too much. And if it is, they're just special plays that week to where it might be more of on the high end number of 5 plays that are personnel based.
For sure, for sure. And to piggyback off of that, Plasm, I think that your personnel packages, they may not be specific, for me at least, they may not specifically be tied to your concepts, but your talent and your availability is tied to your personnel packages. You know, you'll see especially at the high school level, you'll see programs, successful programs that come into a year and for whatever reason, hey, 65, 70% of the time, they're 11 personnel. And that could be a hand in the dirt tight end, or it could be a sniffer, but they're 11 personnel. Same team that had success few rounds into the playoffs comes back the next year, and now they're 10 personnel. And it's all predicated on, you know, they may not be doing much different from a concept standpoint, but who are the best guys that we can get on the field to get the ball in their hand? Heath also asked, QB question, what would your key points for when you've got a QB that's really lacking in confidence?
I mean, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, because I've kind of had, just like every quarterback coach you've gone, everywhere you go, you're going to have different situations with quarterbacks. I've had quarterbacks to where they're never played it down before varsity football, and they've been a 2-year starter, but they still lack confidence. I've always had those. I'm big into psychology. So much of that is going to be predicated on the kid and kind of studying him and seeing what's the best way to get him that confidence. But you know, I think just in general, it's so much lonely work with that kid, being able to get him on the board and he can confidently give you those plays. And if you can have him draw up the first 20 plays of the game on that Friday, and he can do that, I mean, that itself is going to be confidence. And so from a schematic standpoint, it's him just having an understanding, and more than an understanding, but ownership of the foundation of your offense. I've always been more of like, well, you can understand it, but I want you to really own it. When you own it, that's when you're going to be great. You'll have that natural confidence. So from a schematic standpoint, it's kind of where I stand. But from a performance standpoint, I mean, it's going to be one of those to where you've got to be smart about the positions that you put him in, whether it be in a game time situation or within practice or in a season in general. And that comes back to what we talked about at the very beginning, which is, you know, it's a great play on the board, but does it fit the guys that you have? And so I see that neglected a lot. We got great receivers. Well, do you have a quarterback that can get it there? If you don't, well, you probably shouldn't have that place. I think it's a great question. At the end of the day, as you know, defensive ends don't win you championships. Quarterbacks do. And I'll argue that till the day I die. So take that for what it's worth.
Exactly. So I kind of touched on it at the very beginning, but the individual training, you've been doing that for 8 years, 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years now. Yeah.
And just for those that are watching at home and you may not be as super familiar with this man's resume, we're talking about, obviously his high school quarterback, wherever he's coaching, but we're also talking about the potential starter for the New England Patriots, Jarrett Stidham. We're talking about the potential starter for UCLA in Chase Griffin. We're talking about guys that, you know, are playing all over the country. Potential starter for Mississippi State coming up this year in Jalen Maiden. You know, some dudes. The new starter for Duncanville High School, which is going to enter the season preseason top 3 in the nation at minimum. You know, so there, and he's worked with these people, and it's not because he has a big elaborate website, and it's not because he markets himself on Twitter constantly. If anything, he's probably very poor in that aspect of his business, but they seek him out and they drive to Nashville to work with this guy. What have you seen from the guys that you've worked with that have made that jump and are having success at the next level, whether it be college or, you know, in Jarrett's case, or some of the other professionals you've worked with? What's the consistent personality trait? What's the common factor in those guys versus everybody else?
No, thank you for saying that. Those guys are great too, by the way. They make me look good. But um, I kind of touched on it earlier. They all have Rocky Four, um, and that's just the ability to not worry about anything else and know what the job is, and they can be and rush it by themselves, and they're just going to do that to complete the task, no matter who's watching, right? Uh, Dilfer and I always kind of use the Rocky Four just because it's, when that whole thing went down, he goes to Russia. It's nothing mattered. I had a job. I focused on that job, and I didn't care about anything else until that job was done. Um, and every one of those quarterbacks at some point, whether it was before me, when I was training them, or a few years, after I trained them, whatever it may have been, they all had that lonely work ability to where it's just that self intrinsic drive of Coach Kirkland gave me a drill today. Every one of those would send me a video, whether it was that day or the next day, of them doing that drill in their bedroom. And that may sound crazy, but even the best and Tom Brady and those guys like that, they do that lonely work, and I've never seen anybody successful at a high level who didn't have the ability to do the lonely work. So that's probably the most common one I would say.
For sure, for sure. Well, that's all I got. You got any questions for me, man?
Uh, I mean, I do. Just for everybody watching, you probably already all know this, but if you ever need receiver stuff, this is a man to talk to because he's asked me if I had a question. I probably have, I don't know, a whole book's worth to ask him. He's got just in regards to receivers and all that type of stuff. He's the best at it. So I may have to hold that for another time, um, but no, as of now, like I said, I just appreciate you letting me on the show and let me try to have this interaction with the fans out there to your show because it's awesome. It's fun. It's fun to learn and to be connecting with other coaches. I really enjoy it.
It's been this is such a weird place and time, just like in history, not just in football or So I think it's created a lot of you know unique opportunities, and I view it like obviously I think our situation's different because from an economic standpoint, we might be the least impacted here in Texas because we're government employees. Taxes are already paid for from
Yeah.
last year and whatnot. But it's so interesting to see, the Mark Cubans of the world talk about, crisis like this create the next wave of entrepreneurs and the next wave of new inventions and things of that nature. And think about if you were the person that even as far back as January was buying stock in Zoom, right? Like you're crushing it right now, right?
Oh yeah.
Zoom
Yeah.
was solving a problem that we didn't even know existed yet. And there's so many different jobs that were like, why would we ever need that? And the people that are taking it and running with it in whatever direction they're running is what's so interesting. Heath wanted to let you know, thanks for so much for answering all my questions. It's been great. T-Mac knows a little bit about the team I'm going to, so a lot of work to do, but he said thanks a lot. So Heath is our Australian family member. He coaches American football in Southern Australia, and
Wow.
so he's been on the channel, in the chat for basically since its genesis, and so he's been awesome to talk to. We've zoomed a couple times, so
Oh, that's awesome. I was on the phone with the Patriots, one of their trainers, their head athletic trainer, and then
do you need to
one
do you need to lean over and pick up that name you just dropped?
and so they we were FaceTiming probably, I think this was 2 weeks ago, and a doctor from Australia, he actually FaceTimed in. I guess he's one of their doctors. I imagine, I don't know, but we were talking just about some of the movement and the throwing philosophies that I teach that I kind of got from Rob Williams out in Canada, and he's been a mentor for a long time. So they were interested in trying to get some of that philosophy, but that guy was from Australia too, and he seemed like a cool cat. So it's kind of a small world.
Yeah, you're getting roasted. This is no big deal. Just humble brag right there. Oh, just
No,
FaceTiming with the
no.
Patriots head athletic trainer. Yeah. You get used to it, chat. He does these things all the time, and then he looks at you like, "What?" Like, "Oh, what?" Just saying.
No, I think the funniest one was probably, and you can cut me off if I'm going too long, but was so yesterday, um, it's me and Coach Dilfer and our receiver coach Jamie, and so we're going over some of the offense and whatnot, and really talking about Cross, and then adding Cross in with like a gift route on the outside, and so we're talking about it, and our receiver coach hasn't really been involved in the last few weeks. He's been pretty busy, doing other things with his other job. So he comes in yesterday. I'm trying to catch him up, and Coach Dilfer's like, "Oh crap, hey, I got to take this phone call real quick. It's just on the computer. Uh, give me like 5 2 minutes." And so obviously me and Jamie were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, cool." And so I go up on the whiteboard and I'm, kind of whispering to Jamie, and then all of a sudden, like on the computer,
It's Pat McAfee.
I hear, "Hey, Trent Dilfer, so glad you can come on the show." Blah blah blah, and yeah, it was Pat McAfee, and yeah, same thing. Like, oh, you just kind of had to take this call real quick. It's Pat McAfee, so it's kind of a big deal. So
So if you ever wonder what kind of world Trenton lives in, chat, it's the world where Tua drives to suburban Nashville to get ready for the draft, or Pat McAfee calls in to the head coach's landline, or the weekly video conference with Colin Cowherd. These are the halls that he walks.
Lipscomb's. I was talking to the Middle Tennessee coach yesterday about recruiting, and I was talking to him about a couple of guys that are hopefully on their way to come to Lipscomb and play, and so we got kind of deep in the conversation and trying to figure out the whys and the differences between why to come to Lipscomb and this and that, and he's like, well, I do know that the day that I was there recruiting a couple months ago, you had Michael Chandler was working out in there. He's the MMA like 3-time world champion, and Thomas Rhett walked out, and y'all were talking. So maybe that's why all the kids want to go there.
Yeah, maybe that's why everybody wants to walk these halls.